Hello. I have done on some previous videos some work with DTRS format, which records on 8mm tapes 8 tracks of digital audio for professional applications. But there are problems with these decks. They can damage tapes. They can have problems with the tape tension. So we're going to have a look at today a DA-98HR, which was a high resolution version of this format, which I suspect might be damaging tapes. So we want to look at that. I think it might have been crumpling tapes at the very start. So I've been given some great information from Eddie at Eddie Saletti, I think his name is. I'll give you some link to his YouTube channel. Really knows his stuff about these things. Told me how to dismantle this thing and work on it. I've also got a problem with one of these LEDs not working, or it works when you tap it. So we'll see if we can get that apart and fix that too. Right, let's start with this mechanical issue. So one of the things that can happen is that a guide in here, and I'll have to see which one it is exactly when there's a tape in there, doesn't return properly from when it laces and unlaces. We'll see that now. We'll have a look at it. I'll move you to the top position so you can see the deck clearly. Hopefully you can see the deck. Let's power it up. Let's try play and see if it does damage this particular tape. If I see the tape riding up around the pinch roller here, then I'll hit stop before it does too much damage. Yes, look. Did you see the tape was starting to ride up? Do that again. Rewind a little. So watch the tape now, it's nice and flat. And it's starting to lose flatness here as it's riding up the pinch roller. Look, there it is. That's bad. Right. Now the guide which sticks is, I think, by this roller, but we really can't see it with the cassette carriage in the way. So we'll eject the tape and take the cassette carriage off. What's involved in getting this apart? I'm not quite sure. I may have to take this front off, I think. Now you need to be careful taking cassette carriages off, because there are some machines where the cassette carriage drive mechanism is deeply connected to the mechanism underneath and must be retimed. But this one, I think, has its own motor here, and so it's independent of the deck below, and that is usually the case with professional equipment. Okay. Loosen the front off. Now I can get to the deck properly. Bit of care here. This is the power switch, and it's quite possible to drag that across the metal at the side there. There doesn't seem to be much in the way of insulation between those two. Oh yeah, okay, right. So we need to be careful that this is powered down when you do this. You could get a big bang. I think I can take the carriage off. Be careful, there's some cables here. And there's something on the other side too. Yeah, I've freed up those cables, but I don't see how to free up the ones on the other side. This cable's in here somewhere. How am I supposed to gain access to this? Let's see if we can take the whole deck out and then release the wiring to the cassette carriage. Okay, deck removed. That was only 3 screws. Now maybe I can get to this problem. Ah, it all comes apart now. There's enough room, I think. Okay. What I think I'm going to do is I'm going to manually or apply power to this loading motor to get it to load, and then have a look at the problem guide that gets sticky. I'll just apply. I don't know what the voltage of the motor is. Does it say on it? It may not. I'll apply low voltage to that. It's probably 6 volts, but I'll try 3 initially, just until I get a feel for it. That looks about right. So the problem can be, I think, this guide here. This is the one. That's not supposed to be like that, is it? So the back tension's all wrong, because that's the back tension guide. That's never going to work like that. This is all stuffed up in there. There you go. That's the fault. So the grease in here has gone sticky and horrible. Right down there. It's amazing the machine worked at all in that state. Just in case you're losing sight of what we're doing here. So there's the head drum. These are the 2 tape spools. This is back tension arm here. So you get this on VHS and beta decks as well as 8mm. And there's a back tension band around the supply spool here. And this is supposed to be free to move, but it's not. So what components do we have on here? There's the back tension band, the spring, and that's it. And then there's a circlip at the top. So we need to take this off. There's a washer on the back tension band as well. So we'll start by releasing that. These split washers. Need to be careful they don't ping off. Right, that should be the back tension band removed. Yes. We have the spring here to unhook. Easing it up. There we go. So this is the shaft that needs the gunge, and the inside of that shaft needs a gunge cleaned up and replaced with a tiny drop of a light oil. Okay, that's freed up that horrible oil, grease, gunge. I'll check that's free to move. much better. Now what I'll do is I'll put a tiny amount of my favourite oil on that. Right, to reassemble, I think the spring needs to go on first probably. Then the back tension arm. Then the two washers. Right. Let's just make sure that this looks out of position at the moment. Let's run the motor both ways. Yes, that is correct. I'm sure it is. Yes, you can see that guide is working properly now. That's where it's supposed to be. If it's hanging out over there somewhere, the guide's not right. The back tension won't be right. Good. Now the other thing Eddie mentions is that these supply and take-up spools can go sticky on their shafts. Really not seeing that. That seems absolutely fine on this one. They've got a brake on, so that's correct. Let's just release the brake and check that they spin freely. Oh, that's got back tension band on as well, of course. Yeah, they're fine. I'm not going to fiddle with that. Right, let's reassemble it. I have managed to unplug this connector here, so I need to reattach that. Right, that's the deck refitted. Refit the cassette carriage. It doesn't feel quite right. It needs to be sat down. There's something not quite right. Oh, that's it. We're there. Okay, I have it reassembled enough to safely test it, I think. Press play. It's playing. No errors. And the tape is sitting where it should be. It's not riding up here. Last time it was riding up above the pinch roller, staying nice and flat. Oh good, that's worked nicely. Eject the tape. You have to press stop first. Good. Power that down. Next I'll tend to this intermittent LED. I forget which one it is, and unfortunately, of course, it's now, having been jostled, decided to start working. I'm going to have to take this board off. So what I think I'll do is I'll refit this front panel and then undo the screws that allow me to take the front board off. Okay, so it wasn't this first LED on the chain that has the problem, but actually there may be a dry joint on that one too. So maybe it's the LED soldering that's not very good. Okay, that's all reassembled. So if we hit play there, the tape is running smoothly. There are no errors appearing here. My LEDs are all working reliably. That is perfect. I'm really pleased with that. Well, since the DA-98HR had that problem, and I understand these often suffer from that problem with the back tension guide, let's have a look at this. This is a PCM800 from Sony, which is a kind of a take on the DA-88, and I have one of those too, with different connectors. So, being Sony, it has more emphasis on the audio connectors and less on the Tascam's own interface. So it doesn't have the TDIF1 connector, I don't believe, but it only has digital on AES EBU in and out, which I think the DA-88 doesn't have except by an external box. Anyhow, connectors aside, let's have a look and see if it suffers the same problem. Well, this is subtly different. It has a big plastic sheet over the top of the deck, which is slightly in the way, to be honest. But we should be able to see fairly quickly if that guide is sticking on this one. Right, with the plastic sheet removed. So this is the guide that suffers from the problem. Let's drive the motor, the loading motor, out of the way. I can do that by unplugging this and then applying, I found about 5 volts was good, onto the motor. Okay, I've not gone all the way with that. Let's check that this is free to move. It is. There's no stickiness to that one. I might just put a drop of oil on that pin there, just so that it remains lubricated properly. So that involved a lot less dismantling that time, because there wasn't much to actually repair, but a drop of oil on there probably is a good thing. Reconnect the motor. Let's put a tape in there. And I've pressed play. Oh dear, I don't seem to be getting any output or timecode or anything. So maybe we have fouled heads. I don't want to overuse head cleaners. It does warn you about that in terms of loss of head life. But if we have no output, we're going to have to try it, I think. So 10 seconds with that. Oh, what did that say? It says you need to use a high 8 tape. There's a way of forcing it to override that, because of course high 8 tapes have got subtly different idents underneath. That's a nuisance. There is a way of pressing a key sequence that will override it, but another workaround could be simply to copy the tape idents from this high 8 tape. So that and that hole need to be knocked out. Let's just do that. Won't do any harm, will it? That might work. Right, 10 seconds with that. Now let's try. Nothing. I'm sure this machine used to work. That's disappointing. Maybe that's an incompatible recording, so let's try this one. Ah, yes. Okay. This is a test recording I made some time ago, just in stereo, but that's working fine. And here's the DA-98 with the optional digital audio interface unit, which gives you the same AS-EBU outputs that the PCM800 has. So this has the TDIF1 interface there, which allows us to connect it to an 8-channel recorder, and I actually use via an adapter an Alesis 24-track recorder that allows me to capture all 8 channels at once. So let's have a look and see if the back tension arm is sticky on this one. So as before, I will disconnect this motor. And drive the mechanism forward. And see if this back tension arm is free to move. And yes, it is. But again, a preemptive strike, I'll put a drop of oil on the top of that.
So we need to
Press power.
Power. Okay, so now what do I have to do? What does that say?
I don't know what that said.
That says error. That says error. It's flashing error.
Okay, do you know what I didn't do?
It says warning.
Yes, I'll bet. I forgot to plug the loading motor back in.
Oops.
Ah. You can do that.
Can I?
Yes. I'll switch it off the isolation transformer to make it absolutely safe. So that connector there needs to go into that socket there. So you need to kind of push it in that general direction, and then maybe push it in with a screwdriver.
It's not as easy as it looks because I can't see when I use my fingers.
Close.
Almost. Why is that not working?
Okay, that looks good.
That looks like it's in.
Okay, let's put the machine back. You can switch on the isolation transformer.
Yeah.
Switch on the main power switch. And it says Tascam. Did you see that?
No, I didn't.
Switch it off and on again. And then sit back and squint. Go on in.
Oh yeah,
Good,
that's
that, isn't
cool.
it? I thought so. Somebody must have got pay rise for that. Right, pop the tape in.
Like that.
I think so. Press play. We'll only get a response from the left and right channels, channels number 1 and 2.
That should work.
Yeah, if it works.
Play.
Good.
That looks good.
It's working beautifully.
Okay. That's working.
Stop and eject.
That was a record. Stop. And
eject at the top.
Oh yeah, right there. I thought eject would be down there.
Maybe press it harder than that. Brilliant. Thank you, Scott.
Yay.
Well, I hope you've learned something and enjoyed this work on these DTRS recorders. Have a look at my other YouTube videos on the subject as well, where I talk about capturing the data, all 8 channels at once, on an HD24 recorder from Alesis. In the meantime, do please remember to like, share and especially subscribe, and I'll do a lot more content on audio and video technology in the near future. Bye for now.